The Imperial Palace is getting absolutely huge, but this is easily the most insane video yet. Every now and then, I just lose my mind. I have some utterly mental stroke of hobby madness. Now you might think that everything I do here is slightly mental, and that's pretty fair. I mean, look at this thing. The palace is filling my entire studio. But today, we have something that is even more ridiculous. There is something so corrupting about a big new box of shiny miniatures. It's like a mystical force of hobby mojo that just takes a hold of me and makes me do some rather insane things. Games Workshop, what have you done?
When Games Workshop released the Scaventide box, I converted an entire army of rat cultists for Warhammer 40k. When Leviathan dropped last year, I wrote a custom rule set to transport Dawn of War from a video game to the tabletop.
Light of the Emperor!
And when the Osgiliath box dropped the year before, I built a 60 square foot flooded city.
Mega layout. This is mental. But today's descent into hobby madness is very special as the Tyranid horde are invading the Imperial Palace on Terra. And yes, I understand how mental that sounds, just bear with me.
Tyranids have just been absolutely popping off in the world of Warhammer 40k lately, from starring in the Leviathan 10th edition box set to forming the ultimate enemy in Space Marine 2. Nids are extra special for me as they were the very first Xenos army I ever saw Space Marines fight in October of 2004 when I bought my first White Dwarf magazine and my Warhammer 40k journey began. But it wasn't until mid-2005 that my true Tyranid hobby dreams awoke.
So this is Kill Team Typhon, which Games Workshop sent me last month. But I only opened it yesterday as I've been a little busy with this massive thing. And it has blown me away, and not for the reasons you might think. So this box pits an Adeptus Mechanicus kill team against a Tyranid team, but I have absolutely zero interest in standard competitive kill team. I prefer the vibe of the original kill team. No, not you.
Kill Team!
Still wrong.
For the glory of the Imperium!
Oh, Kill Team perfection.
Kill Team has been reincarnated in many ways over the years, but in the very beginning, back in 4th edition of 40k, one squad of special Kill Team operatives was pitted against a horde of brute squads, and this new edition is finally bringing back that flavor with the non-player operative system, which are essentially AI horde enemies that you can fight with your kill team.
So today we are going on a mental Zorpazorp hobby journey. By the end of today's video, I want 2 fully themed forces and a new sector of the Imperial Palace for them to fight in, fully finished. Insane conversions, mental paint jobs, and custom scenery. This one's gonna have it all. And by the time you guys are watching this, my new Kickstarter, Zorp Sector Rome, will be live. So we need to get these armies done in under a week.
A week?
I might leave that in.
So first things first, what the hell are we actually making? In 2005, White Dwarf Australia ran 2 amazing narrative campaigns that were absolutely fundamental in shaping my hobby as a youngster. I've spoke about the Tandarus outbreak, birthing my love of Vostrians many times before on the channel, but the much forgotten forerunner was the Laius Rift campaign by Brian Cook and Laurie Goodridge, which saw, and strap in for this, a small force of Adeptus Mechanicus exploring a death world for ancient technology, accidentally awaken a frozen Tyranid hive ship, discovering not just a slumbering force of Tyranids, but a scary new bioform.
Sound familiar? So clearly someone at G-Dubs knows their obscure White Dwarf article lore, because this set is like 100% inspired by the Laius Rift campaign. We have an Adeptus Mechanicus Explorator team, crazy new Tyranid bioforms, and even a crazy linked narrative campaign that sees players fight off the hordes of the Tyranids in story beats that are so similar to the original article. So today we're making a Zorpazorp version of this ancient slice of GW history, but instead of a frozen death world, it's taking place in the post-Siege of Terra ruins of the Imperial Palace. And yes, I know the Tyranids didn't appear for another 8,000 years after the Siege of Terra, but we'll just work that out as we go along.
So we're going to start with the Tyranids because, frankly, my mind is running wild with crazy conversion possibilities. Here in the Typhon box set, we have 5 Raveners and 10 Hormigants, but we are going to need a lot more.
So this is everything I had planned for my Dawn of War Tyranid army, which, as you can see, isn't even started. There's probably over 100 Tyranids here. We're not going to need all of these, but we are going to need a lot.
I love the kill team rules, but I hate the kill team scale, so we're going to play this campaign at about 4 times the size. Instead of a handful of single models, the kill team will become small squads of 2 to 4 models supported by vehicles, and the Tyranid single operatives will become a horde of old school style brute squads. Basically, I just want to play a 600 point game of 40k with alternating activations and much more unit granularity. For the Tyranids themselves, I've started by assembling the Raveners from the Typhon box, which basically seem to be like a new kind of Tyranid warrior style of model. Now this is the Nid kill team, but it can also be used as NPOs in our narrative campaign, so our next job is to assemble en masse enough of the 6 non-player operatives that are available. The second unit is the Hormagaunts, and a sprue of 10 of those actually comes in the Typhon box, and my goodness, these might be the nicest Games Workshop warrior models I have seen in years. They are still fixed poses, but you get 10 unique sculpts with insanely dynamic posing and a couple of head options. Mega Velociraptor vibes. Up next are some Termagaunts from the Leviathan box. These guys look great, they assemble fast as they're the push-fit versions, and Termies are just super nostalgic for me, as Battle from a Crag was my very first exposure to 40k. Then we need some Ripper Swarms. Now these little critters come on the sprues of Termagaunts and Hormagaunts, so I went diving into my pile of shame, and I have 2 sprues of Hormies and 4 sprues of Termies, so I clipped all the Rippers off to give us 6 of the terrifying little baby Nids. Then we have some Barb Gaunts from the Leviathan set, which will create some really cool gameplay for the kill team. They're like a ranged artillery style NPO shelling our kill team with yucky bioweapons. Then our final NPO is the Von Ryan's Leapers. These are a new 10th edition unit. Essentially, they're like baby lictors, I think. So they're going to be moving fast and nasty, probably operating in pairs and getting up close and personal.
So the horde of Tyranid NPOs is looking awesome, but just like the Laius Rift campaign, I want like a big centerpiece, a kind of Tyranid boss fight for the end of the campaign. We've increased the scale of this kill team format, so we can have these bigger units now. There's some options from the Leviathan box, but I've also got this Norn Emissary, who is massive, frankly. He might be too big. Oh, he does look good, though. Look, I'm just going to have a look at some of these sprues and see what inspiration strikes.
So I got really drawn to the large tail and the impressive torso of the Norn Emissary, but I kind of struggled to find some real direction for the posing, so I went back to my source material, the original Laius Rift Horror Carnifex conversion, known as the Reaperfex, sculpted by Laurie Goodridge. Now Laurie's Reaperfex main feature is the massive size, and it has no legs. Instead, all 6 of its limbs are the slicey, stabby, scything talons. This beastie has evolved to burrow up through the ice. Insanely inspired by Laurie's conversion, I stole all 4 scything talons from the Leviathan box Screamer Killer to go with the 2 that already mount to the upper limbs on the Norn Queen torso. I mounted her 2 native talons and then clipped off the mounting pegs on the Screamer Killer arms and began designing the pose, matching which talon will mount where on the lower section of her torso. I used a bit of green stuff to help pack out the joints and set everything in place with plastic glue and super glue, and then sculpted back over the blends to create more muscle tissue to encase the massive talon shoulder joints. So, a much simpler conversion than Laurie's phenomenal kit bash for the OG Reaperfex, but I had access to much bigger parts from the outset. In 2005, Laurie would have had just the Carnifex kit, a lot of green stuff, and like days of sculpting. I'm very happy with my result for just a couple of hours work. So, what a horde of Nids. These guys are ready to party and coming to an Imperial city near you.
So everything that you guys just saw happened a month ago. This little project had to be shelved entirely so that I could finish the palace and get the Kickstarter campaign up and running. And now we've got 3 components left on this little project. The Tyranids need to be painted. We need to build the board that these armies are going to fight over. And the Adeptus Mechanicus Explorator team needs to be built and painted. I think next, let's start working on the city.
So this campaign takes place in the ruins of the Imperial Palace after the Siege of Terra. So we need the board to be heavily destroyed, and the ruined city buildings from Zorp Sector Rome, my own STL Scenery Kickstarter, which is going live today, are the perfect battleground for our Tyranid and Mechanicus forces to fight over. The Kickstarter comes with a huge amount of buildings with an amazing sci-fi Roman aesthetic that Jacob and I have been perfecting for over 6 months. Every building is a unique, highly modular structure, and the buildings can be connected together using our modular walkway and balcony system. Each building in the set also comes fully intact and completely ruined, and has a hybrid ruined level that allows you to combine the ruined and intact pieces together, so you can make your Zorp Sector Rome as destroyed or intact as you like.
You can even blow the buildings up as you play for a fully destructible environment.
Everything you need to build an amazing city is in this one set, from the roads and the city tiles, the city terraces, the buildings of course, the walkways to join them together, beautiful bespoke scatter terrain. I really do mean everything. We have been working insanely hard to try and make the single greatest sci-fi wargaming city set so that you guys can make a truly epic wargaming table.
And with the Battlezone Mars add-on, you can bring the industrial to your civic metropolis.
It even comes in both 28mm and epic 8mm scale, so go and check out the Kickstarter link down below and score yourself an awesome set of wargaming scenery that is going to change your wargaming forever and support all of the madness here at Zorpazorp. So let's get some of our Zorp Sector Rome ruins ready to be the war-torn landscape of Terra for our Tyranids to infest. And these are some of our Civis Tower ruins which still need a paint job, so up first it's time to match these new lads to our established scheme. In my mind, this sector of the Imperial Palace infested by Tyranids used to be dedicated to one of the many arms of the unwieldy Terran bureaucracy before the siege destroyed it, so this cluster of buildings all has a matching paint scheme. Perhaps it was like a set of hub modules for the administratum staff. When we were designing these ruined pieces, it was mega important to me that we had some crazy flexibility. I wanted to be able to have structures that could have intact lower levels but be blown out right at the top, rather than the just kind of classic full ruin that we always see on wargaming tables, and these hybrid joining levels give us exactly that. With the buildings coming together, we of course need a city for them to live, and probably my favorite element of Zorp Sector Rome is the city foundation system we've designed. This is a set of floor tiles, roads, and plinths and stairwells that allow us to build an insanely modular cityscape packed with playable verticality, and when combined with the Zorp Sector Rome walkways, the flow of movement between the structures and the gaming board is just going to be incredible for our upscaled Kill Team campaign. We'll see a bunch more of these city tiles get built in next week's video, and if you're very good, I'll give you a sneak peek at the end, but I'm very happy with how our city is coming on. But our armies are still in a dire state.
So time to get some paint down on the Tyranids. We need to pick a color for our chitin or our carapace, and for our flesh. And I've got two big influences. I love the original scheme from the Laius Rift Horror, but I'm also really keen for some Battle from a Crag action with these Nids, but I hate the High Fleet Behemoth color scheme, so we got some thinking to do here.
After poring over my references and rummaging through my paints, I just decided to get stuck in and fully paint one test model. You can really only tell if a color choice is working in the context of the full scheme, so this Termagant got a mix of approaches across the different parts of the model, and after a lot of deliberating, I locked down my approach and the batch painting begins. I decided to try and tackle the bulk of the troops first to try and get them out of the way, and our first base coat is Rattling Grime Contrast, base coated by brush, not my airbrush, which is a bit of a change, on all of the chitin, which is like the organic carapace armor that forms half of any Tyranid color scheme. The remaining 9 Termagants were up first, and then the slightly less armored and much more choppy 10 Hormagaunts. Then I decided to do the 6 Ripper Swarms in this batch too, really just to kind of pad out my numbers so I could trick myself into feeling like I had made more progress. The next base coat, the skin tone, and here I want to try and replicate some techniques that Jules from Weta Workshop taught me when we were painting a massive 1/6 scale Tyranid for the Lieutenant Titus statue, but I need to adapt those approaches to our Warhammer scale paint job, and the key takeaways from that process were translucent layers and texture in the skin tone. So first, I'm going to stipple a thin bone ink all over our grey prime to get the skin a really kind of splotchy highlight accent. The sporadic and rough application is going to build up organic textures into that skin tone. Then to add our warmth and the skin tone itself, simply a Reikland Flesh Shade wash, and in these 2 simple steps, we've got staggeringly good looking Tyranid skin tone. Then it is back to our chitin, which first needs its own textural highlight highlight, flat grey with just a touch of emerald green, dragging the brush splayed out like a fan in the direction of growth. Like the newer chitin at the ends of the panels is kind of lighter, maybe it has less blood flow reaching that part of the bone than the roots. Then the chitin is finished off with a heavy wash of Coelia green shade to give us our glorious green-black beetle carapace. But the real test for this scheme is going to see if it holds up at a much larger scale. And so up next is our Reaperfex, and she is going to be tricky. I started by picking out the carapace in the rattling grime, but I'm most nervous about the skin tone working on these kind of larger surfaces. So I just aggressively stippled on some texture and then slapped down Reikland Flesh Shade Wash, and staggeringly, this recipe seems to be pure magic and just worked perfectly. No further highlights needed at all. Next, I jumped back to the chitin and began layering my grey-green edge highlights, and this did take some finesse. I had to kind of pick out a lot more than just those hard edges, fanning and splaying the bristles to create cool organic textures. A new detail on this beast is the synaptic tissue, or the alien brains. I did a huge swatch test because I just wasn't sure what color would work best. I didn't want it to be kind of too alien-y or sci-fi. This whole scheme is a much more realistic version of a Tyranid paint scheme than we normally see in 40k, but I couldn't resist the bright pop of some light purple to really add some snap to our big girl. Then, absolutely bloody stoked with our Reaperfex, we've got 3 units left, and there was nothing to do but just get stuck in. Over the next full day in the studio, and then 4 hours at night after the girls had gone to bed, and then another 4 hours the following morning back in the studio, I painstakingly repeated the scheme on our Barbgaunts, Von Ryan's Leapers, and Raveners. These all had some subtle variations, with chitin in different places, or slightly more scything talons, even some purple synaptic tissue on the Barbgaunts, but essentially it's just the same process. Then with the army fully painted, I dived into basing, first black rimming all of the bases, and then PVA and some grey rubble for the war-torn streets of the palace.
So these guys are looking absolutely awesome, but they need somebody to fight.
So for now, our Nids are back in the box, and it's time for our Adeptus Mechanicus Explorator team. Now, I want to really capture the original vibe of the Mechanicus from the Laius Rift, which, as the AdMech range didn't even exist yet, was a bunch of amazing Imperial Guard conversions by Brian Cook, but we'll modernize our force a little. So up first is just the AdMech kill team from Typhon, which comes with a techno-archaeologist, an underseer, and then a bunch of servitors. Now, our Mechanicum kill team has been sent out into the war-torn remnants of humanity's cradle on a mission of discovery, so they're gonna need some transports to move through the rubble. So up first is a Dracosan armored transport requisitioned from a nearby Imperial garrison assigned as their bodyguard. Now this finally begs the question, why are they here? Our campaign is set in the ruins of the Imperial Palace some years after the siege of Terra. Some ancient piece of technology has been giving off a weird psychic signal, and the Mechanicum, foolishly thinking it might be one of the War Master's Psi Titans buried in the rubble and ready for salvage, are about to unearth a much greater horror. Maybe our Tyranids are some form of mutant biomass that was born from the awful viral weapons of the Death Guard, or maybe Tyranid first contact didn't happen in M38, but thousands of years before, when a warp-capable advanced probe was drawn to the greatest concentration of biomatter in the biggest conflict in humanity's history. Reinforced by my existing Vostrian Imperial army and my Mechanicum drone team, I just couldn't resist slapping them down to explore Zorp Sector Rome, but unfortunately, they discovered much more than some juicy technology. This is a massive sneak peek of the full Zorp Sector Rome layout, which is live right now on Kickstarter. You'll see this build come together in more detail in next week's video, and this mega modular layout will eventually form the next city district of the Imperial Palace once we've built an epic series of bridges in the Imperial Palace finale.
How good do these Nids look on this board? We didn't get the AdMech painted, but the Nids and the board are done, so I am calling that a victory. Make sure you go and check out Zorp Sector Rome, my first ever Kickstarter. We have absolutely poured our heart and soul into it, and I think it's just going to blow you guys away. And I'll see you next week right here on Zorpazorp.